Hi, this is Trolls from VAP, and in this video we're going to take a comprehensive look at our VAP Extreme Ensemble Series Synth Edition, and with a particular focus on our spot microphones. As you may know, with our entire Extreme Ensemble series, all 5 libraries actually come with 15 microphone positions. We have 5 microphones in the hall, that would be our mixed, deca, far, wide, and close. And then we have additional 10 spot microphones, 1 for each player. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, we wanted to get a more close sound, so you didn't just have the big sound of the ensembles in the hall, so whether it's 10 guitars or 10 synthesizers or 10 drum kits or whatever it is. We didn't just want you to have the hall microphones and listen to the big ensemble, but we also wanted to give you the ability to hone in on one particular instrument or build your own ensembles from the spot mics as well. So each spot mic essentially represents one player. And in the case of the synthesizers here, obviously each spot mic is a synthesizer by itself. And that's really interesting actually. If you just take something like a sine wave, triangle, saw, or square, and you trigger them on different analog synths, you actually get a different wave. And particularly once it starts flowing out in the orchestral hall. Let me just quickly play a couple of the spot microphones here so you can hear how different they actually sound. And this is just for something as generic as a sine wave. I'm just going to go through all of them. You can see they're actually loaded right now. You can see 1 and 3 and 9 are loaded, but I'm just going to unload them here. And then I just want to play one single note so you can just hear, wow, like sine waves can be a lot of different things. So obviously very different interpretations of what a sine wave can be. And as I mentioned in the beginning, one of the really great parts about this is that you can generate your own synthesizer ensembles. So it's not just that you have 10 different synthesizers here that you can choose between, but it's also the ability to create your own ensembles by combining them. Let me play a little bit with this one. So 3 different synthesizers playing sine waves. And obviously on this particular preset here, you can hear there was reverb and some textual convolution delay and a regular delay. Let me just switch it off here and play it one more time. One of my favorite things about the sine waves, particularly in the ensemble formation here, is the ability to create fat, beautiful bass sounds. And you can hear I'm playing around with the filter here. If you go to our main page, you can actually assign different types of filters to your mod wheel as well. So in this case, I'm using a high pass filter as well. And if you want to click on any of these and try, the same thing with a triangle, saw, or square short note ensemble, you can certainly do that as well. One of the other aspects that's really awesome about the short notes here that have the round robin variation is the ability to arpeggiate. In this example here, I'm going to play another patch called sine arps. So we'll be arpeggiating the sines. We actually built this custom arpeggiator here for the Extreme Ensemble series. You can see here you can control the rate, the swing, octave, repeater, and you can activate it and deactivate it here. And for a lot of things, for example, for our acoustic drum kits, you can actually use velocity layers, also a step-based sequencer here, and you can choose whatever pattern you want down here for your arpeggiation. So let me just play a little bit with the sine wave ensemble here in arpeggiation. And if you click here back on the advanced page here, you can see that this one was made from 2 synthesizers combined. you can really get that clarity. If you watch our other video where I'm demonstrating the hall mics, there's such a notable difference when you hear all the 10 synthesizers playing together versus just having a few here and isolating them. It's definitely better for that tight studio sound, whereas the hall mics is better for really the epic, more orchestral type of sound. And another aspect that's really awesome here is that for each of these synth modules here, let's say we loaded spot 8, you can actually assign different parameters. So let's say that you want to pan them, you want to play with the amplifier or the pitch envelope. That's per synthesizer. You can also play around with filters and ADSR per synthesizer again. So it's not only that you got 10 synths here, they actually behave independently as well. And a good example of that is this guy here. This is just a little attempt to create a synth drum. And if you look here at the parameters, when I go through them, if you look here at the screen, you can see that there's different parameters for each of these guys here, creating a lot of variation in each synth. And it's just great for creating more varied patches, particularly if you want to start getting into more sort of sound design and synthesis. There's definitely some bird sounds with that. To me, it sounds like seagulls when you hear. Yeah, definitely seagulls. Let's move on here. Let me show you something different. Let's go down here and try our triangles combined with the saws. If you look at this icon up here, this chain, when you click it, it actually allows you to blend different patches. And when you highlight them, it means that they're playing. And out here, this white guy here is the purge function. So depending on how many things you want to have loaded, I actually prefer to have everything loaded at any time. That way it's easier to just design new things. But yeah, check this out. This is a stronger sound, a little more EDM studio tight friendly. So, you know, a lot sharper sounding than the sine waves we just listened to, and particularly when you can start combining. You also have a volume guide here. Let's say you wanted more of the saw, or if you wanted less of the triangle, you can do that as well. Let me try to move on here to another guy, and this is also using a combination of the triangle and the saw, but this time around I'm playing with the Arpeggiator. I just love the arps in this. There's such a natural variation. Those round robin really makes a difference in terms of not just having a static arpeggiator, but it's almost like an acoustic version of synthesis. Like there's such life in it, even though they're totally arpeggiated tight to the grid. Let's try another combo here, again using the triangle and saw. This one is a little more tight and pop sounding. And let's say you wanted a more wet version of that, you can always go down here and you can see in this case here, I only used the phaser and the flanger and the degrader to give it a little bit of grit here. But other than that, there's no reverb, and that's really what gives it that more tight sound. The spot mics are really, really tight in this one. Let me play a patch here where we just have the triangle isolated. It's pretty beefy on its own, and it's great for sort of solo synthesis as well. And again, the variation allows you to create, even when you play solos, you get more of that natural acousticness, if you will, which is not normal in the realm of synthesis. So that was really one of the magical gifts when we did this, was like, let's try to do round robin, just see what happens. And the end result is just synthesizers that are more alive. And particularly if you hear the whole version of these things, because the whole played in and generated its own tone and its own character. And it's really like synthesizers that have been Frankenstein back to life. It's kind of interesting. And that little where at the end of the sound here, you can see we have a normal reverb on here, but we also have our transform, which is secondary convolution reverb, and we've added all these tempo synced textual convolution delays. And the great thing is that when you use them, you can use them in combination with your normal stereo delay, but these guys here create an additional texture on the convolution as a delay, and it's all tempo synced. It's kind of cool. Let me move on here. Let's take a look at this guy here. This is a combination between a saw wave and a sine wave. And in this case here, it's a little bit dusty and sort of grindy sounding. And this is a really good example. If you listen to the synth, there's sort of a whoop sound, and that's coming here from one of the synthesizers and having a pitch envelope. If I try to do it to more of them, we're going to get a more sort of a crazy sound. And you can see that's only for one of the synthesizers. So again, you can adjust them individually. So for this one, I wanted a little bit of a boop on one of the synths, and then the other ones were playing static notes as well. And of course, one of the magical things here is really the arpeggiator. Let me try another saw wave here combined with a square wave using the arpeggiator as well. In this case, I actually dueled this one here with our, let me see where it was, with our sine wave arpeggiator. I think it was this guy here. I just combined the two, and that's really something that really takes this library to the next level. When you start combining stuff like different arpeggiators, you just get so much more leverage out of the library. It's one of my favorite things. Let's try another guy here. This is the saw and square combined. It has a very tight, kind of pop-friendly melodic sound. Really good for a pop production where it needs either a chord or a melodic side of a lead synth. On this next one here, I wanted to experiment what happens if you really make a tight sound. So it's not only that we have short notes right now, but you can see here that I actually dialed the offset all the way in here. And that means that if the sample point normally starts here, when you take the offset here, you go further into the sample. So these are short samples made even shorter. And then I took the release trigger here and dialed it all the way down. So it has a very short, sort of snappy sound to it. I just love it for arpeggiations. That natural variation you get in the sound like all the time is just beautiful. Let me try another one here, which is using a combination between triangle, saw, and square waves. And you might wonder like, well, when I have 3 different waves here, how does that work with the synthesizers down here? And essentially just means that each of them are playing all 3 waves. So if you select like say sine and saw, then each of these guys here would be playing sine and saw as well. Another thing I like to do is to play around with the spot mics and try to generate sort of other instruments. This is a good example of what I would call a spot ensemble, and each of them are sort of mangled in different ways. So it's more of a, I'd say like more percussive sounding. Like you can see again, I'm starting to play around with the amplifier and the pitch envelopes here. So magical, crazy stuff happens. The sounds sort of start losing their tonality and tone-based components, but it's great for like synth drummy kind of percussive stuff. And here's another version of an arpeggiator. In this case here, I'm actually using almost the entire ensemble here. I think I only missed out on 3 synthesizers. And this is just to give you an example of how potent it actually is when you start combining different things. When the arpeggiator is playing, I'm just going to switch some of the synths off so you can hear what it sounds like when they're turned on and off. All right, let's move on here to the sustains. In this case, you can see we recorded both sine, triangle, saw, square, but also sine waves with the amplifiers in the hall and the saws with the amplifiers in the hall, and combining it with the direct input signal as well. And it's really, really potent what you can do with these guys once you start combining them. Let me give you an example of something in the stronger realm. This is a saw wave, square wave, and a saw wave with amplifiers as well put together. It just has a really, really fat tone to it. So really, really some fatty tone in there. Let me play another example here. This is totally in a different realm. I was just thinking like, this sine amp here had sort of a little bit of a Hammond organ kind of atmosphere to it. So I was like, let me just try to play it as an organ. I think it kind of worked. And it's fun, actually made me think, actually with the, you can see I'm using 2 synths, but if you wanted to do something different and almost like you have the different bars you can pull out on the Hammond organ, you could try it out with different synths and just see, what kind of Hammond organ this would generate, or this particular combination. Let me just try this one here. Or this combo here. Yeah, so there's definitely a difference in the sort of sound they have. Another sustain here, and this is probably one of my favorite sounds in the entire synth collection here, is combining the saw with both the amplified sine and saw signal down here with the saw amplified signal. Just check it out. For me, it's like a giant showers of saws, but there's such a beauty to it and such a fattiness to it, and yet something subtle, expressive, and alive about it. Just check it out. Isn't it cool how well it takes the filters? For me, it's just like, it's just warm, nice, and rich, powerful. Exactly what I would expect from a synthesizer ensemble played in an orchestral hall, just a little more alive. And speaking of that, let me also show here our sustained sine waves here, just played together. It's just beautiful, warm, and again, it has that organic sort of texture feel to it. Yeah, I think it's just a joy. Let me try another one here. This one, it was sort of happened by experiment. For me, it sounds like somewhere between a synthesizer and a group of seagulls combined. Another great quality about the synths here is also their ability to sound somewhere between organs, synthesizers, and perhaps even a bit of a mellotron. Check this one out. Doesn't it have almost like that sort of churchy quality to it? Let me try another one here. This is also awesome for designing solo synthesizers. And obviously you have an almost infinite amount of variations because you can combine the different waves here and you can combine the different synthesizers and you can assign them individually as well. So it's mind-boggling how much you can do. In this particular patch here, you can see I turned the glide button up here, which means the synthesizer goes monophonic. If it's turned all the way down here, it obviously becomes polyphonic, but the second you sort of go up here, it actually expands the monophonic glide of it. And in this case here, it's just solo synth combining the sine and triangle together. So super warm, expressive, delicious. Let me try another one here, combining the square and the sine amplified synths here as well. In this case, you can see it's using 4 synthesizers and it's using 2 waves here. So that would be 8 synths per voice. And it's cool. I love, you can hear a little bit of the overtone from the amplifiers here as well. Let's move away from the sustains here and take a little look at some of the pads here as well. So it's not only that we did shorts and sustains, but we also did pads and sweeps. And I'll demonstrate a couple of the patches from each of them here. This one is just really, really ethereal, beautiful sounding. And since we are in the realm of pads, let me also show another one here. This is, I call it a series pad. It's one of our presets here. In fact, everything you've been listening to is presets. There's a wealth of them in the library. Yeah, let's try the series pad here. This has a really sort of big motion picture paddy kind of touch to it. Also try to create another one here, which is more brassy, sort of for epic brass. So an attempt to dial in the spot mics here to make them sound somewhat brassy, paddy, epic. So ideally used together with orchestral instruments in the epic realm as well. And before we wrap it up here, let me also show you the sweeps here. As you may recall from a lot of the 8DO and VAP libraries, we've recorded a lot of these arcs, these very expressive arcs, for example, where the strings or the choirs are singing sort of an arcing motion. We actually did the same for the synthesizers. And in this case here, you're going to be hearing 9 synthesizers, spot mics here playing together. And some of them, if you take a close look here, you can see the amplifier and the pitch is sort of moved in different directions on them. If you go through the different ones here, you can see that there's customization of them. Some of them have pan to the left and the right. So you can hear some notes drop in and out in terms of pitch, like boo, and then you can hear some notes sustain as well. This is just a good example of showing you what you can do by combining different ones. This is only using the sine wave sweeps, but it really gives a beautiful, paddy, complicated, beautiful type of texture. Let's just say, for example, that, okay, you kind of like that, but you wanted something with a little more oomph. Let's try it here with the saw waves instead. I'll play the same thing again. Isn't that delightful? And it's one of the advantages of having everything perched here. You can see things are loaded in advance, and you can combine the patches up here if you want to do the chain thing as well. I mean, think about what just happened. We switched a bunch of different synthesizers in real time, and all of a sudden we had a completely different sound. It's just a great way of testing stuff out if you want to experiment and really get into the depths of this magically deep library. And with that said, I should probably wrap up. We've obviously been looking at the spot mics for the Extreme Ensemble Synth Edition. We also have another video where I'm demonstrating the hall mics, but I highly encourage you to watch our other videos as well. We have a 10-piece drum machine ensemble, we have a 10-piece electric guitar ensemble, we have a 10-piece bass ensemble, and then we have a majestically beautiful 10-piece acoustic drum kit ensemble as well, all following the same principles in terms of having spot mics here and having 5 hall mics on top of that. And let's just wrap it up here with one more round here on the sweeps, and in this case I'm going to be playing the saw waves here. If we take a look here, you can see there's not as many, right? I think before we had 8 or 9 synthesizers. In this case here, I'm just using the first 5 synthesizers in a beautiful array. And to me, this last part here is just a great example of how alive the synthesizers are. They're no longer just machines that are generating static waves. There's so much stuff going on. Humans were touching, obviously, for the sweeps here, touching the volume control, but we also got a little bit of the bleed from the hall combined. We have different waves from each of the synthesizers. We have customization for each of the synthesizers down here as well. So an infinite amount of beautiful options that allows you to create something absolutely astounding and never done before. I solemnly swear that there's no way you can replicate this with normal synthesizers and reverbs and all that stuff. There's just so much stuff going on here, and it has that human touch to it. So anyway, enough of my rambling. Let's just listen to the last example here, and thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you in the next videos.